By the time my son signed the divorce papers, my wife already had champagne chilling in the refrigerator. I wish I were exaggerating, but I can still remember opening the fridge that night and seeing the bottle sitting there beside leftover lasagna and orange juice like she'd been waiting for a celebration. That was the moment something cold moved through my chest. Because divorces are painful, messy, humiliating, especially when children are involved. But my wife? She looked relieved, almost proud. And the more I watched her during those final weeks of my son's marriage, the more I realized a terrifying possibility. This wasn't just a divorce. It was a victory. For her. You know what people never tell you about growing older? One day you wake up and realize the person you married has entire sides to them you never truly understood. Not hidden hobbies. Not harmless secrets. Dark corners. The kind that only appear when families start breaking apart. My name's Heath Calloway. I'm 58 years old. Spent 30 years managing freight trains across Texas and Oklahoma. Predictable life. Early mornings. Black coffee. Bad knees. I liked routine because routine felt safe. My wife, Diane, hated routine. Diane needed emotional movement constantly. Drama. Control. Influence. I didn't understand that for most of our marriage because she disguised it beautifully as being involved. Especially with our son, Carter. Carter was our only child. Quiet kid. Soft-hearted. The type who apologized too quickly even when he wasn't wrong. Honestly, he got that from me. And people like us attract stronger personalities naturally. Sometimes loving ones. Sometimes dangerous ones. When Carter married Lila, I genuinely thought our family was entering its happiest chapter. Lila was different from the women Carter dated before. Calm. Independent. Smart enough not to need constant validation. She worked as an architect in Dallas and somehow made Carter more confident just by existing near him. That's usually how healthy relationships look. People grow inside them. Diane hated her almost immediately. Not loudly. That would have been easier to stop. No. Diane specialized in subtle emotional warfare. Tiny comments. Passive observations. Concerns disguised as love. For example, "Oh, Lila's very career-focused." Sounds harmless, right? Until you hear it repeated 15 different ways over 2 years. Eventually career-focused becomes selfish, cold, distant. That's how manipulation works inside families. Quiet repetition. The first time I noticed something truly strange happened during Christmas dinner. Lila mentioned she'd been offered a major project in Chicago. Temporary relocation. 6 months. Carter actually seemed excited. Proud of her. Then Diane smiled while sipping wine and casually said, "Long-distance marriages usually don't survive." Silence hit the table immediately. Lila laughed awkwardly. Carter looked uncomfortable. But Diane? She kept eating like nothing happened. That's when I started noticing a pattern. Every happy moment between Carter and Lila somehow ended with Diane introducing doubt into the room. Not enough to start fights. Just enough to stain the happiness slightly. Like dripping ink into clean water. Over time Carter changed. Started second-guessing himself constantly. Started calling Diane late at night after arguments with Lila. Started relying on his mother emotionally in ways that honestly felt unhealthy for a married man. One night I walked into the kitchen around midnight and found Diane smiling at her phone. Actually smiling. I asked who she was talking to. Carter. Something about her expression bothered me immediately. Then she said, "He finally sees what I've been trying to warn him about." That sentence stayed in my head for weeks. Warn him about what? His wife? The woman he loved? The woman carrying his child at the time? Because yes, Lila was pregnant by then. And somehow Diane became even more involved after the pregnancy announcement. More controlling. More emotionally present. More suspicious of everything Lila did. Looking back now, I honestly think the baby terrified her. Because once Carter became a father, his emotional center would fully shift away from her. And Diane couldn't handle that. Things escalated fast after the baby was born. Sleep deprivation. Stress. Normal marriage struggles. Except now Diane inserted herself into every disagreement. Every misunderstanding somehow became proof that Lila was wrong for Carter. One afternoon I came home early and overheard Diane talking privately with Carter on the patio. I shouldn't have listened. But thank God I did. Because what I heard changed everything. Diane said, "She's trying to turn you into somebody weak." Pause. Your father let women control him. Don't repeat that mistake. Man. That sentence hit me like a punch to the chest. Not just because she insulted me. Because she was actively teaching our son to distrust emotional intimacy inside his own marriage. And suddenly years of weird family dynamics started making horrible sense. A month later, Lila showed up at my office crying. Not loud crying. The exhausted kind. She looked like somebody carrying emotional weight alone for too long. Then she asked me something that genuinely broke my heart. Does Diane want Carter to need her forever? Forever. That word haunted me. Because deep down, I already knew the answer. The divorce happened slowly. Painfully. No cheating. No huge scandal. Just emotional erosion. Carter became paranoid. Defensive. Cold. And every time Lila tried fixing things, Diane somehow pulled him further away emotionally. Until eventually the marriage collapsed under constant pressure. Then came the court hearing. I'll never forget it as long as I live. Lila sat there holding their baby daughter while signing paperwork with shaking hands. Carter looked emotionally numb. Completely drained. And Diane? My wife smiled. Tiny smile. Barely visible. But real. Satisfied. Like somebody watching a long project finally succeed. That smile made me physically nauseous. Because in that exact moment, I realized my wife cared more about keeping emotional control over our son than protecting his happiness. That night after the hearing, we drove home in silence. Rain tapping against the windshield. Streetlights sliding across the dashboard. Then Diane quietly said, "He'll thank me one day." I actually pulled the car over. First time in 33 years of marriage I genuinely didn't recognize the woman beside me. I asked her, "Did you ever want their marriage to survive?" Long silence. Then finally, she was replacing family. There it was. The truth. Not concern. Not protection. Possession. And suddenly every manipulative comment, every late night call, every little seed of doubt. All of it connected. Diane didn't just dislike Lila. She resented sharing emotional importance in Carter's life. That realization destroyed my marriage faster than anger ever could. I moved into a small lake house outside Denton 2 months later. Quiet place. Fishing dock. No tension. Meanwhile, reality started waking Carter up slowly. Especially after shared custody began. Because once he started parenting alone without Diane constantly whispering in his ear, he finally had space to think clearly again. And guilt hit him hard. One evening he visited me unexpectedly, carrying takeout containers and looking absolutely wrecked emotionally. We sat on the dock eating cold burgers while the sun disappeared across the water. Then he whispered, "I think Mom manipulated me." Hard sentence. Harder because I agreed. Lila eventually rebuilt her life. Strong woman. Honestly stronger than all of us. She co-parents peacefully now, but the marriage never recovered. Some damage arrives too deep. As for Diane, she still insists she was protecting her son. But protecting people shouldn't require destroying their happiness first. That's not love. That's control wearing love's clothes. Big difference. And if there's one thing this entire disaster taught me, it's this. Some people don't fear losing relationships. They fear losing influence. So before you leave, tell me honestly, have you ever met someone who confused control with love? And if stories like this pull you in. Messy family psychology, betrayal, emotional manipulation, uncomfortable truths. Hit subscribe and stay nearby. Because trust me, the most dangerous people usually look completely normal at dinner tables.